Forgiveness, the ultimate emotional life hack. If you want a cheat code to peace, here it is. Forgive quickly and forgive often. Instant forgiveness is emotional alchemy. It's ripping out the weed before it strangles your joy. Everybody wants a shortcut to inner peace. This one has been hiding in plain sight. And I know what you're going to say. I know, easier said than done, right? Welcome to chapter 8 of Mike Wood's podcast to book series. In this episode, we're diving into one of the most powerful and misunderstood forms of emotional mastery, forgiveness. So Mike calls it the ultimate life hack because it's simple, fast, and unbelievably freeing. He explains why forgiveness doesn't mean excusing what happened. It means dropping the emotional backpack of resentment you've been carrying for years. We'll talk about why people often hurt others, how to stop accepting emotional baggage that isn't yours, and why forgiving yourself might be the hardest but most healing step of all. Because at the end of the day, forgiveness really isn't weakness, it's a flex. It's saying, my peace matters more than your behavior. So let's jump in. To all of our listeners and fans, please do not forget to like and subscribe before you leave today. And to our sponsors, Dr. Bradley Nelson and iHeartRadio, thank you so much. Mike, it's really good to see you again. I'm really excited because I have some people I've been trying to forgive for a really long time, but I just can't seem to do it. So I'm excited for this conversation. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me again.
Yes, this is awesome. Chapter 8. We're getting into like the dirt now, like the dirt of it,
Yes.
like getting rid of all that stuff. I feel like the more each chapter we go through is like a shedding of a layer.
Yes. There's so much out there that you have to do to be able to truly find peace. And this is definitely another big milestone.
Yeah. So you call forgiveness the ultimate emotional life hack. Why do you call it that? And when did you realize, what made you realize it was so powerful?
Um, just starting the daily practice, it changes everything when you just learn to forgive, instant forgiveness for everything all the time. And it just kind of keeps you open into a state of compassion and love, which ultimately is what we're all searching for, right? So yeah, it's powerful. It's very difficult. This is where it requires some courage sometimes, but we don't have to start with the big things. We can start practicing in the little areas.
Yeah, I think a lot of people cling to resentment, even when it hurts more than anything else. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's that program. You know, we our subconscious mind is holding on to those things because we've given it meaning. And
Hmm.
you know, when we give our subconscious mind that meaning, we say, "This guy did something to me, and it was really bad, and I can't ever forgive it." And if we do that in an emotional state, we've just created uh, a program. You know, we've just programmed our subconscious mind to hold on to that because now it's something we need to be on high alert to protect ourselves. So it's as simple as a program. You know, our subconscious mind is extremely powerful, and if you give it those instructions, it's going to listen and it's going to hold on to it. So you'll if we've got all that anger and all that resentment in there, just the thought of a person will dig up, you know, emotional baggage and make you feel unwell in your stomach, and it'll rattle your body just by, you know, somebody's name being brought up.
Yeah. Honestly, you're saying that, and I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about one specific person in particular that every time I hear about them, I'm like, literally makes me want to vomit everywhere.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to actually forgive, and but by what I mean by that is I sometimes say I'm sorry or I forgive them and me and everybody, but when I hear their name, like you just said, I still get that feeling in my stomach. So,
Yeah.
how do you actually forgive? Like, how do you actually do it?
So from my experience, there's lots of different ways to forgive, but I created a writing exercise where you actually write a letter to somebody and you tell them you forgive them. And the other one's kind of a meditative process that you go through. And you kind of get yourself in a heightened state, a good calm place. And then, but you're lifting yourself up. Like some meditations will bring you down. This one kind of brings you up a little bit. And then you go through like, hey, who am I going to forgive today? And then all of a sudden you get flooded with who you need to forgive today. And those are big exercises, right? They're challenging. One, for example, Jared companies grew like 13 or 3,900% in 13 years. We went from $2.5 million a year to 100 million in 13 years, a very short period of time. Most companies that grow that fast, if they're not a tech company, they go broke. So construction companies, it's extremely rare to do that and be successful. And along the way, there was a lot of growth and a lot of mistakes made in the middle of that. And at one point, there was a guy here that I had gone above and beyond to help him. He had drug issues. He would relapse every now and then. He'd go on a bender for about 2 or 3 weeks, and he'd snap back. And he had a lot of issues with GCs. He couldn't, if things got tense on a job site, he'd blow up and want to yell at people and talk bad to them. But he's probably arguably one of the best utility guys in Middle Tennessee. So he's phenomenal at his job, but he's just got all this chaos around him. And I saw all the talent, and I tried to work with him in a lot of different ways. And somewhere along the line, I'd found out that he was talking bad about me to some of our clients, which is kind of a no-no. You got issues, bring them in here, but going to our clients, that's like crossing a line. And I had done so much for him personally. Like I spent thousands and thousands of dollars out of my own pocket to try to put a mentor with this person. And I had just seen so much upside in him, and I felt just this massive betrayal. So I go through this whole process with him, I'm bringing this up because this is when I first started my forgiveness process, and I remember how it went pretty vividly. And so I do a meditation. I found a meditation on an app, and it basically got me into this heightened state. And then I went through the process of forgiving him. And I noticed about a week later, his name came up, and it was still there. It wasn't as bad as it was in the past, where I would immediately want to say a cuss word, but it was somewhere down in the middle. And I was like, man, I didn't do it. I didn't get it all done. And so I went back in, I did it again. And about 3 weeks later, his name popped up, and it was still there, but it was even less. And you could feel it in your gut. I could feel it in my gut that it was even less. I did it again. It took 3 times to where when his name would come up, I didn't really have a physical reaction. I think part of that is because we're overriding the core beliefs. We're creating new ones by forgiving him. Getting into an elevated emotional state and forgiving him is basically overriding other programs. And those programs are conflicting with each other. When I found out that happened, I was very upset. It created a core belief. I didn't learn how to rewrite core beliefs till years later. Right. And when I went through that, I had to constantly go back and do it. See, we could do it manually, rewriting core beliefs, which we'll get into in the next week, the next chapter. But forgiveness is hard, and the bigger the offense, the more you're going to have to be able to say it. The subconscious mind you're going to have to manually overwrite other programs that have already been programmed to protect you. So it's not easy. Programming your mind to forgive somebody it's going to take some repetition if somebody has really done some harm to you. But
Yeah.
it is easier if you start small though. Like you start with just forgiving somebody cutting you off in traffic. You forgive, the guy that was rude to you at the fast food joint. If you start forgiving constantly, in little ways, it makes the bigger ones a little bit easier.
Yeah. Hmm. I know that sometimes I don't even know why someone's name comes up and I react. Like I don't know if it's something within myself or something they did to me. For example, I got out of a relationship in June, and there's no way me and this person could ever be together. And I know that. Like, so we're so different. We're so different in so many ways, but still, when I hear about him and when I get messages from, like, there's this part of me is like, feels sad and like angry. And but I'm like, my logical mind is like, how is that even possible? Because we're so different. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. But I think what you're saying is that those are just like programmed in my body from repetition, and the longer I, stay out of it or set boundaries or forgive over and over again, that's going to start rewriting itself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I'm going to guess with that guy, at least at one point or another, you got in an elevated emotional state, like a happy one, right? You were
Oh
like,
my God,
I
I thought I
like,
was going to marry the guy. Yeah.
yeah. So in that place, you programmed yourself because that's an elevated emotional state with a clear intention. You thought you were going to marry him. And then now, even though your logical brain was like, oh boy, what was I thinking? You know what? I was high for a second there on life, and I was
Someone drugged me.
confused.
No, I'm just kidding. He is great.
But at the end of the day, when you come back to your sanity, even though your logical mind says you're not a match with that guy, you 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 programmed your mind in that moment when you were into him to think that. So now you're having those aversions to where he's off doing this and whatever. Well, that doesn't match the program that you created. And now all of a sudden you're having that conflict because you set an expectation and programmed it into your subconscious mind. And now all of a sudden anything that contradicts it is going to cause you pain.
Yeah. So, how do we forgive someone without excusing or minimizing what they did? I know this is like what I do all the time in my mind. I'm like, it's really not that bad. It's really not that bad, but it can be absolutely horrible, right?
Yeah.
So how do we forgive without minimizing or excusing their behavior?
Well, just to realize that everybody's human, we're all flawed, and most people who are, and there are exceptions to this, but I'm going to say 99.9% of all people who cause pain, pain was caused to them. Like
Is
somebody
that what you
inflicted a
realized about the guy who was talking about you after you invested so much money in him and trying to help him?
Oh my gosh, his childhood and it's so bad. Yeah, I mean, he's struggling beyond belief on a daily basis. And I forgive him because, and I steal from Jesus on this one, but there's two phrases that I use. And one of them I steal from the Bible, and the other one is just common knowledge. But people in pain, they cause pain, and I forgive them for they know not what they've done, right? He didn't know what he was doing. And people in pain, they're going to cause pain. Those two sentences will literally forgive anyone for anything because they're true, right? We're all just flawed humans trying to make our way through, and we ourselves are causing pain. I have caused so much pain to a lot of people, and I wasn't trying to cause anybody pain, but I was a, troubled young kid trying to figure out life. And, I didn't understand people and relationships. And, I made a lot of mistakes. Well, if I can get good at forgiving everybody else and try to get better and, move forward, well, then it makes it that much easier for me to forgive myself, but it also makes it easier for me to forgive everyone else. But I've got to be very clear. It doesn't mean you get to allow somebody to continue to hurt you. It just means that you're going to free yourself from the pain that they've caused you. And then now you've got to set healthy boundaries and make sure that you're taking care of yourself to protect yourself so it doesn't happen again, but also free yourself so it doesn't continue to hurt you mentally anymore. And that's what it does. Freeing yourself from, well, forgiving somebody will free you from the pain that was done in the past. And that's the ultimate goal is to be free from the pain that was caused.
Yeah. I mean, even though I left my relationship, that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And so after I realized that I was still triggered by, my ex, the boundaries I set, I asked the friends that are connected to both of us to not tell me anymore about him, that I don't want to know anything. Like just pretend that he doesn't exist in my world. And then I even had to ask him to stop sending me messages and photos and, just to protect my peace as I work through it. Sometimes people think that the person who, leaves their relationship or the person who comes across as being super strong and has their shit together, they forget about them, that they're actually just human beings and they have emotions and
Yeah.
we need to protect ourselves because I mean, anger feels so heavy. So why does anger feel so heavy emotionally and physically when we hold on to it?
Well, we're all connected. We're all one. If I'm yelling at you right now because you did something to me, I'm yelling at myself. The subconscious mind doesn't have any concept of duality. There's only one that exists. And I don't know if because that's reality or if that's because that's how our subconscious mind works. But if I yell at anyone, I'm causing myself pain. If I'm getting excited at somebody else, I'm causing myself pain. And so holding on to that pain and resentment is literally just looking at the mirror and yelling at yourself. And I don't know this. I don't know why it's that way, but it's the way we were created. And there, it's 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 hard to truly grasp that. But when you start being kind and being careful with your words and forgiving and whatever, you're going to transform everything. When you start to realize that everyone is connected, and every time I say something negative or resentful or angry towards somebody else, if you'll stop for just a second after you said something and just do a body scan to just see, all right, how do I feel right now? You'll know immediately that is causing you physical pain. And then you
I
can
can't
make
even
the
look
argument.
myself in I can't even look myself in the mirror after I've had like a hissy fit or like if I get really, really mad and it's irrational and it doesn't make any sense. Like I literally can't even look at myself in the mirror because I feel such shame about it and guilt. And it's like, and then I immediately want to apologize to everybody who was even around to witness that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good that you're able to acknowledge that, that it was you, you know what I mean? Because it literally is you. If we're doing anything and we're getting excited and we're acting out, it's you are all parts. You are all the actors. You are playing every role in this play. And how you treat everyone is 100% up to us. We don't feel like it is sometimes because we have these involuntary reactions, and that's what my whole program is about: is eliminating the involuntary reactions so we can remain present and we can bring the unconscious and make it conscious. That's the ultimate goal: is to constantly be aware of what's happening within us, have an awareness of what's happening in here, and then we get to take control of our lives in so many ways, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So the story of Buddha not accepting another man's anger, that is such a powerful metaphor. Can you talk about that a little bit? And what does it teach us about emotional boundaries?
So it's a good little story. I tell it to my kids, especially in the office when because I got a lot of young kids in here working with me, and some of them are adopted kids, and some of them are actually my blood kids. And I'll get them to the side, and we'll have a conversation about them getting excited and pissed off about this and that. And I was like, dude, you're accepting their gift. Don't accept their gift. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, there's a story about the Buddha, and these Buddhist monks that they train for years to master their mind. But in doing so, they all become martial arts experts, right? And so this guy that's 50, 60 years old will little old Asian dude will kick my butt pretty bad, right? But he's just the nicest little guy and nobody would ever mess with. So some guy comes to the Buddhist temple and he starts cussing out the master, right? And he's going up one side, down the other. You don't know what you're talking about. You're preaching all this, and you think you know what you're talking about, and just cussing at him and calling him every name in the book. And the wise old master, he just stands there and he's kind of just smiling and not saying anything and just accepting all of the stuff that's coming at him without reacting. And finally, the guy just gets tired of yelling and screaming and berating him, and he just walks off. And one of the students comes over with the crowd of these students that were watching, and he says, "Master, why'd you let him do that to you?" And the wise master looked at him and said, "If I come to bring you a gift and you don't accept it, whose gift is it?" And he looked at him and a little confused. He said, "Well, it's my gift. If I brought you a gift, you don't accept it, it's still mine." He said, "Well, I chose not to accept his anger. And so it stays with him." And that's just a symbol for how we can all react. If I like another quote about if you'll be elevated with a compliment, then somebody's criticism will destroy you. Like, so we don't, the goal would be to not let anybody mess with our peace, disturb it at all. Yeah, like, no, you don't get to touch any of this. This is all mine. And you don't get to destroy any of it. I'm gonna live in here how I choose to live. And nothing that you're going to say on the outside is going to affect me. Now, obviously, if somebody punches me in the face, okay, now something's going on here, but I don't have to accept any
Game
of
on.
this.
No, just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different type of a situation, but then I can remove myself from the situation and move on. So we have to physically defend ourselves, but past that, we don't. That we don't have to allow anybody into our mental space to disturb it. And it's extremely difficult because there's so many triggers. As we go through each chapter that we've been talking about, there's so many different triggers. But when you start to stack one on top of the other, you start to get rid of so many and you get so many tools. And now all of a sudden you're navigating this world uh, without people triggering you and you feeling like you don't have control in how you respond. So
Yeah.
that's the goal. And forgiveness is a huge part of this. Not forgiving somebody is allowing them to destroy your peace.
Well, I like how you illustrate that if someone's validation like elevates you, then someone's criticism is going to destroy you. It's like I remember a time when I just all I looked for was external validation to feel good about myself. And it was like, always looking to the outside. And that's a crazy place to be because it is all in here. Um, this is a tough one, but why is self-forgiveness often the hardest kind? Like I literally would be able to forgive anybody for anything, but when it comes to myself, like in a simple thing, it's really hard to forgive myself. Like it could be something so silly. Like I stepped on my cat's foot or paw and she like yelped, then I feel terrible. It's like just something so small, but I can forgive a murderer for killing someone. Like, why is it like that?
You know, it's extremely common. I've worked with a lot of people, and it's 9 out of 10 people. This is the case. They have a much harder time forgiving themselves. So this is completely normal. I think it's because we hold ourselves to a high standard. We're looking at the world and we're saying this is the way that it's supposed to be. I'm better than all of these things. I could do better here. I could do better than this. And so it's our own self-judgment. And that's what where forgiveness of everybody else, I kind of went through a different kind of an upbringing. I kind of was left to the wolves, so to speak. I grew up in a household where my mother was there, but she wasn't, if that makes sense. We kind of three young boys grew up on welfare, government assistance, and I just had to come home. It didn't matter what time I came home. So as an 8, 10-year-old kid, I could be out till midnight on a school night, and nobody would really know. As long as I got past all my grades, nobody said anything to me. And as I grew up, I didn't really have a clear understanding of love and what it felt like. I always would see other kids uh, with their parents, and they would talk about their mom, and there was this undying love for their mom, and I was like, well, my mom and we don't really have a crazy relationship. And so I started in my head imagining what it was supposed to be like, and then I would pretend what love actually meant. And that's, I think, for a lot of years, I don't really know what it meant to give or receive love. I just looked around and took a superficial, educated guess on what it really was. And I don't think until very late in my life that I truly understood what it meant to love myself. And I don't think I truly got there until I started forgiving everyone around me all the time. And then it made it so much easier for me to forgive myself, because if I forgive A, B, C, D, I forgive everyone for everything, right? I started working with prison, going to the Riverbend Maximum Security Prison and kind of taking my program in there to these guys and talking through forgiveness. It's easy for me to forgive these people, although they haven't had offenses against me, but they did against mankind, and they're in there, in a cell for 23 hours out of a day. And if I'm able to forgive them and spend time with them and try to help them find peace, well, then what about me?
Yeah.
You know, Now, over time, I built up enough stock that I've forgiven so many people. Well, now I could finally forgive me. And I think forgiving yourself becomes easier when you literally forgive everyone else, and then your brain is going to go, wait a minute, I forgive everybody else. You'll have to forgive yourself at some point, and that wall will come down. But I think it starts with forgiveness, period. Don't focus on you or somebody else. Whatever comes easiest, start forgiving there and just build on it and build on it and build on it. And over time, you'll be forgiving yourself and others, and it'll just be easy. It'll become a way of living.
Yeah. What are some signs that someone is subconsciously holding something against themselves?
Um, just negative thoughts, constant negative, angry thoughts. If you're having resentment or anger for no reason and you're just feeling angry today, you wake up and you're just pissed off. Yeah, that's probably you pissed off at you and not knowing how to release it, not knowing how to let it go. That would be my guess. That we don't have to go far to figure out what is going on. There's no reason to look out into the world to figure out, you know, why we're pissed off. If we're angry, we're angry inside, and typically, what it's usually at ourselves or somebody else, and either way, it's going to have the same result.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how does compassion for others eventually open the door to forgiving ourselves?
It's the attrition, like your brain. There's lots of different ways to program the subconscious mind. And the way that I was just describing a minute ago is auto suggestion. So if I constantly forgive everyone for everything all the time, basically the way Jesus was he told everybody to live. He didn't say, read my Bible and follow this. He said, live as I live. And he forgave people as he was getting put up on the cross. And if if we can live the way that he lived, that is the goal, right? So I'm following that lead right here. And I don't typically follow any religion or any type of a doctrine, but that's beautiful advice. Like the more we do that, we are reprogramming the subconscious mind to forgive for everything. You're training the brain. Oh, that person is doing something that he shouldn't be doing. Forgive them. That person's doing something. Forgive them. That person's doing something. Forgive them. And it becomes on an autopilot. And before you know it, you'll be noticing somebody doing something, and your body, your mind will automatically have thoughts of forgiveness towards them. But it just takes time and repetition. And then all of a sudden you're on the downhill side of things. And then that's when it'll kick into you. But it takes time to reprogram the mind through autosuggestion.
There's these beautiful videos of like people who go back to visit their captor from like concentration camps and stuff on YouTube, where you could see the person that was captured go visit their captor, and the interaction, it's so emotional. There's something so powerful there. It's like this person, they're like, that's hardcore. Like, I mean, that's next level. That's like a family member forgiving someone who murdered one of their family members. But to watch that, you can see the shift, and you can almost see the unplugging of the attachment. And then, like, to watch it from an outside perspective is just like so incredibly emotional. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know what it does, but I can only imagine what it does for those people, because
yeah,
both sides of the coin, human beings are genuinely good unless you're a psychopath, or unless you actually have something wrong with you. We're genuinely good, and we're all doing the best we can. But those videos are insanely powerful.
yeah. And the emotion comes from having to relive it, because when you forgive somebody, that's where it takes courage, because you're having to relive it again. We've talked about this before with the subconscious mind, but it doesn't have any concept of time. So if you're constantly reliving it because you're angry at your captor for torturing you and doing ungodly things to you for however long, that's pain that you're reliving right now. Every time you're thinking about it, you're reliving it. And to be able to dig it all back up and then forgive them, it just takes so much courage. But on the other side, it's a gift of freedom, because now all of a sudden your subconscious mind is not going to hold on to that and make you regurgitate all those memories all the time. It'll allow you to see it in different ways. Sometimes when we go through the core belief section, where people hold a lot of resentment for people. Well, one guy was talking about his aunt, and when he was like 12 years old, his aunt just went into a rage about something she didn't know anything about, and somebody almost drowned in the pool because they were messing around, and it was a mistake and it was an accident. And she came out and she was just irate and angry and demanded that her sister whoop his ass. And so he ended up getting pulled to the side, and his mom whooped him, and his mom didn't believe him, and it was just this horrible thing that created this terrible thing. And when he went through the whole thing and forgave his aunt and his mom, and we sat there for about 5 minutes and kind of just taking it all in, now that he had got through it. When he remembered his aunt after that, he remembered her as younger, prettier, in the actual state that she was in, but the way that he remembered her before was this older lady at the age that she is now, because there was about a 25-year gap in this, and he had her as this old witch of a woman that was
Okay.
older
Yeah.
and uglier in his description. And when he forgave her, he remembered her as a younger, prettier, gentler woman than
Isn't that
than he did.
interesting?
Yeah, it's because all of a sudden, if if you label something, your subconscious mind is going to do everything to back it up. It's going
Hmm.
to start to chase it and make that your reality. And so as soon as you forgive them, it just opens up for healing, and it opens up for to allow our heart center to open up and just feel joy in the present moment without getting riddled with all of the involuntary misery that shows up in our stomach.
Yeah. Once you start like releasing those layers of anger, like people literally will start to notice because it's like your energy body becomes lighter and you'll probably get people asking you if you started using a specific cream or something, but it does. There's like a youthful connotation to releasing fear, negative emotions like fear, anger, sadness. I don't, anyone can relate to this. If you look at someone who's angry or sad, like they literally look like they're 20 years older than they actually are. You look at someone who's super happy and has really positive, like a smile on their face, it makes them look like 10 years younger. So you can really
Yeah.
see that contrast. And I don't know, the reason I'm saying is because imagine what's happening on the inside when we hold that in. If that's what shows up on the outside with an emotion, what's happening in our bodies when we're holding on to that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, science is proving now that stress is the 90% cause of all illness. Like that stuff is killing us. The lack of forgiveness, the old negative core beliefs, holding on to things we don't need to go. My favorite shirt that I wear all the time is got a Buddha on it. It just says, "Let that shit go." And that's what we need to do. We all just need to let that shit go. It's just we're carrying stuff around we don't need to carry, and it's causing us pain, and it's making us physically sick.
Yeah, it is. So you mentioned those tools. So I want to talk about them a little bit more. So for releasing forgiveness, you've talked about the forgiveness writing exercise and then the Kundalini forgiveness meditation. So can you talk to us a little bit more about those and why they work so well?
Well, it's one is Kundalini meditation is just powerful because you're messing with a powerful energy that most people don't know about. And I caution people to get too crazy with it because it can be dangerous. But used properly and very gently, it can induce a lot of emotion, and it's extremely powerful. In the short, it's a dormant energy that typically lays dormant at the base of your spine, and for most people, it doesn't awaken until you die. And Buddhist monks and a lot of folks and they know how to do this, but they won't typically uh, talk about it because if this energy opens up before you're physically healed and ready, you've done a lot of mental work to work on your attachments, to work on your forgiveness, to handle how the negativity in your world and get rid of old negative core beliefs. If you're not ready for it, if you ignite that kundalini, um, it can just bubble up all of your problems all at once. There is no box anymore. The lid on your box that you're trying to shove shit in is broken, and it's all just going to bubble up, and it can be a very, very challenging thing for anybody. So I caution people to take the kundalini part of this and run with it. But we do a gentle, very gentle way of just bringing golden light up from the base of your spine. You just start imagining it, and you do that for about 5 to 10 minutes. And that's all you're thinking about. With every inhale, you're pulling golden light up. You're exhaling and you're letting it come back around. You're making a full circle with this golden light coming up the base of your spine, out your third eye. And as you exhale, just bring it back to its place and just get this circle going. And after about 10 minutes, you should be extremely calm. You should actually start to feel the energy rising up from your base, and it becomes powerful, make you feel strong, make you feel awake, alive. And then simply ask, um, who should I forgive today? How should I forgive today? And man, I'm telling you, within a second or so, you're going to know exactly who you're supposed to be forgiving. And then just stick with it and replay every scenario that you can. Let all of the thoughts come up. My brother was troubled when my dad left early, and when we were real young, my brother was a grown man by the time he was 16 years old, and I would piss him off because I was an annoying little brother, and he'd kick my ass a lot. And as a kid, one of the first things I did with this thing is I forgave him for all those little childhood fights that we got into. Because that was the first one that came up to me when I did this. And I just replayed out every one of those old little childhood things because I was holding on to them. And they just kept going. The scenarios and the things, they just kept going. And I would just think of it and then forgive them and then go to another one. And your brain will just start unloading these things. And you'll have memories that come up that you don't even remember. Um, and just to keep that flowing. And then once you kind of run out of things, just keep doing the thing for another 5 or 10 minutes and just be with it for a minute and say, thank you for all the help that you got. And uh, kind of just close out the meditation in a nice, soft, relaxing way. Make sure that there's nothing left there. And then you kind of come out of it, and it's pretty powerful. But like I said, you know, you might have that person's name pop up again and it not be gone. It may take 2, 3, 4 times to truly move past one person, maybe even longer, depending on who or what it is. Um, and then the other one is a writing exercise where you literally write it down on a piece of paper, a forgiveness letter. You write down all the things that have
And are
caused you
you
pain
giving
in
this person the letter, or is this just for
the
yourself?
past. Just for yourself. Now, if you feel compelled to give that person a letter, but it's not about the other person. Forgiving the other person has nothing to do with that person. So if you feel compelled to, sure, but just because you're ready to forgive them doesn't mean that they're ready to forgive themselves or even own the issue. Like it adds a whole
Yeah,
other
it's all
dynamic.
perspective. It could open a can of worms.
Yeah, it truly can. If you feel overwhelmingly compelled, go for it. But I would highly recommend this is about you. This has nothing to do with the other person. Forgiving them frees you from the pain that they caused you, and pulling them into your forgiveness healing session has nothing to do with them. Don't. I would highly recommend don't bring it. Don't give it to them because you don't need any negative impact on what you're doing
Mhm.
because some people aren't going to own it. They're going to see things different than you did. Then you get into a debate. At the end of the day, your feelings are real, they're valid, and that's what you need to release. You need to let that shit go, and that other person's just going to make it more complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a story where a moment of forgiveness completely changed your life or your sense of freedom?
Um, yeah, I do. Forgiving myself. Um, and in all of the different core beliefs I did based off of my intelligence. I had a lot of harbored resentment towards myself in my early years, just based off of my intelligence. And it wasn't that I didn't think I was smart, because part of me knew that I was, but I was living a lie. And just forgiving myself for not being perfect, forgiving myself for not being living up to all the expectations that I felt like I needed to do, forgiving myself just for everything, everything. And I know men and women, they carry different dynamics that are very gender specific as far as how we live. But for a lot of men out there, they struggle in silence, and they're not they're not valuable enough because they don't make enough money. They don't have the right woman, and it's because they're not a man enough. They have to measure themselves up, King Kong versus King Kong. We're in a battle to see who's the most dominant alpha male in the room, type of stuff. And then there's all kinds of stuff that go with that, whether you are a physical person who can fight or you can't. And there's just all these expectations that are total bullshit. None of it matters. And the constant letting down myself down in all these years of of looking at the world and saying this is what a man's supposed to be, and then judging myself as a failure on them. Like I had to when I forgave myself for all of that bullshit, it really just freed me up to just be a flawed human and not care anymore, to just let it go. And that was pretty powerful for me to just let it all go. And it took a lot of forgiveness and honesty. The week 9 of my program is authenticity. And that really is one of the most powerful things that we could do, is just look at ourselves and be honest with all of our faults and all of our success, and just it is what it is. And you don't have to be perfect. None of us are perfect. I think that's what it is to be human. And
Yeah.
to be able to remove all of those expectations and the validation, like that I'm okay, that I'm good enough for this person, or I'm like, you can let go of all of that too, and just be okay with you. Not need somebody else to fill a void for you. And I think that's what most of us do. We look for somebody else to fill a void within us. And when I truly started to be authentic and look at the world and be honest about who I really was, and stop listening to the stories that I created to make myself feel better, because they were all lies, and I knew they were all lies, and they were physically making me sick because they were lies. Um, and then having that awareness, um, and then uh, and then forgiving myself for all the bullshit, and just letting it go, and just I love the thing they do in the East, where they take a beautiful vase and they break it and they put it back together and they glue it back together with this gold glue, and then they meditate on the imperfections of the vase, because that's how we are. We're imperfect beings. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
We're flawed in so many ways, but we look at those as they're negative things, and we harbor resentment towards ourselves because of all of those things. And in reality, we should be celebrating those flaws. Should we? It doesn't mean we shouldn't try to be better and do better. And that's not what that means at all. But it just means we're accepting what we are in reality, and we're not twisting it in our head just to make ourselves feel better. We're just accepting it as it is. And that's for me. I know that mixes in a little bit of other things with forgiveness, but being able to forgive myself for just the mess that I created, trying to dance that dance for so many years that was just bullshit. That was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I spent many years really, really angry, and this is an example of how that anger can manifest into the world. Is I was so angry, and I didn't know why. And I was effing mad all the time. And I'd go to work and someone would chew, someone would breathe, and I would be mad at them. My neighbor would do laundry and I would be mad at them. I would just be mad all the time. And then someone that I was seeing for some therapy just said to me one day, "Why are you so mad?" And she said, "You're mad at yourself." And I just like literally like just broke down and just started bawling. And it was like in that moment, I knew that I was so mad at myself um, for like allowing myself to be treated the way I was treated for so many years, when I went through addiction and just allowing myself to be treated that way. So it was like me being mad at myself. I think a lot of people need to understand that what we're talking about is when we're mad at ourselves, we're going to treat other people like that. And until we let that go, it's not going to detach and we're going to be miserable. It's so powerful. That moment was so freeing. It literally felt like a version of myself like left my shoulders, And now I don't get mad when people breathe anymore. It was
We all
that
have
bad.
to.
It was literally like someone's nostril was moving on the bus, and I was like, I'm gonna kill him. Like it was crazy. Like it can be insane.
Yeah. Well, when we're not being honest and we're not forgiving people and we're holding on to all this thing, and it could be a jumbled mess of six or seven, eight things, but when it gets so just chaotic, I mean, we're frustrated with life at that point. You know, that frustration, we don't even know how to articulate it. We're just mad, but we're mad at existence, our own existence, because it sucks. You know, you
Yeah.
get 10 different things bubbling up in your stomach and you don't know why any of them are happening. You have no control over it. It's misery. It's misery. But that's how we grow and that's how we get, through this thing. It's not all supposed to be peaches and rainbows. It's supposed to be an experience that's lived. And, how do you have love without loss and, love without hate and all these things? Everything's got to have an opposite for you to truly understand what it truly means to love. So without that hate, you wouldn't know what love is and vice versa.
Yeah, that's so true. So, Mike, tell us more about your program.
I have a 10-week program that literally starts out with a manual shift, calm these crazy thoughts in our heads, and then it transitions into some perspective changes, and then it gets into the to truly healing ourselves for about 4 weeks. We kind of dive into some heavy stuff that requires some some courage and to be able to just face our fears. But we'll give you the tools, all the tools you need to be able to get to the other side and take control of your life. That seems like sometimes we don't have any control, but I promise you, you do.
Yeah, and where can people find more about your program? Where can they find it?
Uh, LearnToLoveBeingYou.com. That's where you can find it. And yeah, it's a pretty simple course to take. It takes about 10 weeks and it takes about an hour a day. So the commitment, life you have to really be sick and tired of being sick and tired to want to take this course. But if you are, it's got a very, very high success rate. You just got to put in the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here today and for talking about forgiveness. I know it's so powerful. Easier said than done sometimes.
Yes, yes, it's not easy. And thank you for having me again. This is a good conversation.
It was an amazing conversation. Do you have any last minute thoughts that you maybe want to leave the audience with? Perhaps a tip where they can start simple?
I always like to use driving. Somebody cuts you off. That's the perfect place to start driving. Nobody's mad at somebody that cut them off a month from now. Nobody's mad unless they caused an accident or something, but nobody's mad a month from now. So see if you can squeeze that time down to a matter of seconds. It's going to take you, at first you're going to get pissed off and then go, wait, 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 I forgive them. Come up with some reason to forgive them. And for me, that was a great place to start because after you do that 10 to 15 times, if you drive a lot, then now all of a sudden it doesn't take you a matter of seconds to be able to do that. You do it instantly. And once you start forgiving that person that cuts you off instantly, you're on the other side of it now. Now all of a sudden you can carry it on to everything. And it can just start with something as simple as that.
Yeah, I started doing that. Now people are annoyed with me because I'm letting everybody in. You can go now. You can go too. And everyone's like, get going, woman. You're being too nice.
I think the world would be a better place if everybody was just too nice.
Exactly. Thanks again, Mike. This was an amazing conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and to our audience, just know that forgiveness takes a ton of courage, takes a ton of strength, but it is so freeing. So start with the little things and work up to the big things and watch your life change. Until next time, take care, everyone. Check out learntolovebeingyou.com.